Um,
Hello.
Hello, good evening, Sophia. So great to
Mm,
see you.
Indran. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So this evening we're going to speak, Sofia Ferrez and I, a little bit about her poetry. And Sofia is a Uruguayan poet who lives in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and she writes in Portuguese. She also writes in Spanish, and we're going to have this conversation in English. And I've had the pleasure translating a couple of her poems into English, and towards the end, she'll read the original Portuguese, and I'll read the English versions. But Sophia, can you just give us a little bit of biographical details about how you came to poetry and how we connected? Go ahead.
Well, I started writing like it's already 7 years ago.
Okay.
It was a coping mechanism for uh, after a breakup, and I didn't have the intention of being a writer. It was just a therapeutic thing. I found out to be very helpful for that specific uh, time in my life. And yeah, the poetry came like naturally. It wasn't my intention to have to choose in between a narrative or poetry, but um, yeah, we have so many good poets in Latin America and in Spanish and Portuguese, and I grew up reading Fernando Pessoa. So for me, it came naturally, but maybe if I start thinking, there was a reason behind going to poetry. Yeah.
And now we have one excellent new poet in Portuguese and in Spanish in Sofia Ferres. So I'm very glad. I'm
Yeah,
very
right.
glad that you made that
Comparing
decision.
with the superpowers of Latin America and
Yes, yes. No,
Portugal and Spain, and
I
yeah, there's so many good writers in Portuguese language, and in Mozambique and in Cabo Verde, there are so many countries that they have this
right, right.
the superpower of poetry, and I would say that in Spanish, the superpower is narratives and in
Okay, but let's
poetry.
let's hear some of your poems. And first of all, I should say that you've published three books thus far. Um, uh, O Livro de Haikus, the Envuelta and Desmatéria. You have a couple of other books in preparation. So would you just like to share some of your work? Yeah.
Yeah, the first one was actually a very crafted one because it was made with joining hands with a typographic of place here in São Paulo, and yeah, they gave me the chance to produce to craft this little one here with moving typos, and it was hand uh, book binding, and this is a paper made of banana produced here in Brazil. So everything is very, handmade.
Right.
Um, by that time, when I started writing the haiku, I was taking, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks long courses on how to write haiku, and it was very interesting to see how it intersects with meditative kind of activities, and the fact that you don't use the self, and you have to absent yourself from yourself to write haiku. So it's very interesting, and it was like a game for me. I was very much having fun
Right.
uh,
Right.
trying to not to involve myself, the self with whatever you're writing, and the fact that it has to be short, and the fact that something has to happen, and it's all based on observation. So for me, it was like a game. It was a fun game to play.
Yeah. So
And
let's hear a few of the haikus, or livro de haikus, no, in Portuguese.
yeah, the petit, the small book of haikus.
The small book of haikus.
O pequeno livreto de haikais. I'm going to change my camera so I can show you.
Oh, great, great. Thank you.
Let me see. I like this one. If maybe you can translate. Are you able to read it?
I can see o muro balança e a sombra da roupa da mulher que dança. It's beautiful. The wall balances, and in the shadow of the
It is the shadow of her clothes
clothes that dance
while she dances. So something that is rigid, it's actually moving, but it's just, the shadow of someone dancing. Yeah, it has this rhythm and combination of phonetics in Portuguese.
Yeah, it's very lovely. O muro balança e a sombra da roupa da mulher que dança. I would need a little time to translate it beautifully into English, but the book is so gorgeous. I mean, it's just amazing. The steering.
And there's some shelves. We created like cliches on metal.
So why don't you just give us a feast to hear a few of these straight through.
Água sonhando com a lua na tina, ainda meio-dia. Ciganas dançam, as flores da roupa espantam as moscas. Well, this one is kind of a continue of the first one, right? Because how is it called ciganas in English?
Cigaras would be crickets, I think.
No.
The locust dance.
It is the flowers of their clothes and something.
Or ciganas. I was seeing cigaras. Sorry, ciganas dance. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I can translate it on the spot. I would need some time.
Okay, no problem. Let me see. How do I go back?
Okay, there you are. Okay.
Oh yeah, this.
The libro Nikes. Okay.
The second one is envuelta. In a sense, it's the previous. It is. It heads straight to the third. So this is like today I see it as a preparation for Desmatéria. Because it doesn't have I hadn't had a project in mind, it was just a reunion of a bunch of little poems and pearls all over. And although I remember thinking through the exact order that would make more sense, but it's different than Desmatéria because this one is a project itself. It was thought through the whole process. And
now, when you say envuelta, I think of de vuelta, like come back. But
envuelta means three things, and the book is in Portuguese, but the title is in Spanish.
Right.
And I have like 3 poems in Spanish. in this book, and some drawings of mine as well. It means coming back.
Right, coming back. Yeah.
And it means covered up.
Covered up.
Envuelta.
Envolvido, envuelta.
Envuelta, envolvida. And giving and making a turn at the same time.
Okay.
So 3 different meanings.
All in that one phrase. Yeah.
Some
Wonderful.
of them are all together and some of them are separated. So I thought on putting this underline in between, because to accept the 3 different meanings it has.
So would you like to read us 2 or 3 of the poems of Envuelta?
Yeah,
if you like.
it's kind of naive, I would say.
Don't prejudge them. Let's. Okay.
And let's see. I like this one. A mente da sede é seca, sofre de febre silenciosa. A poucos passos do amor chove. I was very into meditation in these times.
What page was that on? I have the book right here. I goes what?
19.
19. Okay, yeah. A mente da sede é seca, sofre de febre silenciosa. A poucos passos do amor chove. Yeah. Each of your books is a beautiful physical thing to hold and touch. You know, it's lovely. And you do things with space where you place the poem, different parts of the page. I wonder if that's an influence of the concrete poetry, you know, of where you live in Sao Paulo. Or
I don't think so. My background is design, so
okay,
I like to you know, take close care of the final graphic project.
right,
And when I write the poems, I already imagine which place of the sheet is going to be, where is going to be placed on the
where the
book.
sheet is going to be placed. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it is called a mancha do texto.
What page is that?
Right now it's 13.
13, yeah.
So for me, whenever I work with an editor that doesn't allow me to you know, to interfere how the text is going to be placed,
Right.
I feel very constrained, and I'm always searching for more open and receptive kind of projects in order me to decide, right? Because for me, the support is just as important than the text itself.
By support, you mean the presentation of the words?
The book, the
Yeah,
book
the design.
material.
Yeah. No, I understand what you mean.
It's not just the printing thing. It's just the whole thing. You know, the book beyond just a structure for text. It has to have a conversation with between the support and the text itself. So
I understand that very much. I'm learning about that a lot now with becoming a publisher with Beltway Editions, where the design of the book is so important to the way the poems are presented, and working with the designer. It's really a very special thing. It's an object. It's an art object, isn't it? The book.
Yes, and there's a lot of elements to pay attention to, where the you know, the number is going to be placed, or the stain of the text, right? What is where it will be placed, and the size and the touch and the feeling and the colors and the drawings and so on. Yeah, it's very interesting, and because I don't use titles.
Right, right.
I
And tell
had
me
to.
tell us why you don't use titles.
I think it's at the end you have this poem, and it doesn't, for me it doesn't make much sense to at the end trying to find out a specific word that is going to reveal beforehand, or is going to be like a tricky or a play with words. And it's just I'm a poet, and at the end is being asked to create this word that's going to comprise or resume, or or play with it, or so it's like a second job.
Right. It's another
And I'm not interested in this second job.
second job. Okay. All right.
I
Well,
like to write a poem. I don't right. I'm not interested in trying to find a word that is going to open it or present it or resume it. Or
well, it's a bit like a play within a play, or a cover, a book without a cover. Is that a book? I mean, the cover is the title, right? I mean, you have a sort of a way into the book or into the poem. It's just a relationship, how you want to relate to the reader, isn't it? Or the listener. You can relate to the reader.
yeah, it comes out handy, because you have to, at the end of the book or starting the book, it will be good to have a title to refer to. But I don't like the process of
No,
finding.
and yeah, and that's fine. And ultimately, it's you are the creator. You bring the poem into the world and you present it the way you wish, and the reader also has a job to do to come walking towards the poem, right, or the listener.
Yeah.
So it's a
Sometimes
contract.
it will be like a spoiler.
Okay,
I
okay.
don't want to, spoil the whole thing. It's like a
But
teaser.
it could be a teaser, it could be a spoiler, or it could be uh, a crutch that the reader needs to understand how to negotiate the territory of the poem. It's all very, finally, how much you want to give or not give to the reader in terms of clues, right?
Yeah, it's like a clue, and sometimes I want them to be free to come up with what I cannot see anymore.
Oh yeah, sorry, I lost my video for a second. Okay, there we are. Okay,
Uh, I want the reader to come up with the final idea of what the
right.
poem is about, and not I giving them that.
Can you
You
read?
know?
Can you put yourself on the screen right now? We're looking at the book, but
Yeah, I was about to read it.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
And yeah, that's the main reason. I don't want to make the poem about something, but and it will give less options of interpretation,
Okay.
because I already gave him a
Right.
word. So the poem is about that, and maybe that is a restriction of an other
Yeah. No.
interpretation.
No.
Is
I think philosophically, you raise a very important point, and I appreciate that, and I
Oh,
think
thank you for asking, because I didn't know I was thinking about that.
the danger
uh,
is if you're an influential poet, I might well end up starting to produce poems without titles now that I'm talking with you about
no,
this.
I'm sure there's a lot of people already.
No, well, no, it's a minority, I think, in terms of the world's poetry, who don't use titles, and I think it's a very
No, but if you
interesting
start
artistic
thinking
choice.
Poema Sujo is the book, it's just one poem,
That's
and
true,
it's
but
book
one title that
all the
covers the
way.
whole. Yeah, no, of course there are examples like that, or I suppose Homeros, the long poem of Derek Walcott's I can't remember though if there are individual chapters that have titles. I think they do. Let's listen because of time. Let's
Okay.
let's move on to hearing a few more poems, and then let's let this be the first of many conversations for the Poetry Channel about poetry and
I'm going
titles
to read this on page 13, okay?
of Enwelter. Is it okay? Go ahead.
Recebi teu livro. Do pacote ao abri-lo saiu o cheiro de éter. Deve ser da tinta impressa, presa, ou das palavras hospitalizadas. Senti tontura o dia inteiro.
Maravilloso.
And it's funny because Portuguese are more, how do I say grave? Like a lower.
A lower register, kind of a darker voice.
The Portuguese language is a lower tone of voice than Spanish. There's more open and so on. So my voice changes when
you recite in Portuguese. Yeah, very good. All right.
The third book is Desmatéria. It means
Desmatéria.
unmaterializing, something
Right.
like that, right?
Right. Yes. Or material being broken up somehow, you know. Or,
Yeah, is like the process of
unraveling, maybe.
becoming subtle from the dense matter to something much more subtle. And it is a funny process because I used to hang out a lot with a friend that likes he listened to a lot of opera.
Okay.
And I couldn't understand the whole thing, but he started to trying to explain the whole thing, and he mentions that it used to start with the first part of an opera is like a big opening, and like it's at the same time most of the times a wrap up of what's going to develop in the second and third phase and something like that. And I started to relate with I'm not a fan of Beatles or anything like that, but I don't know why.
Really?
I remember that music that it goes a day in the life.
A day in the life, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like there's an opening, and then they put it it's
a classical music, right?
How do I say back what?
A background.
No, from the end to the start of the backwards.
Backwards. Okay. Backwards. Yes.
And it relates at the same time with the singer, because the part that is most abstract and subtle and so on is John. And when he starts saying about a day in a life and the domestic affairs, it's Paul, and it matches a bit with their personality and so on. And at the end, it's very psychedelic, kind of. They play the music backwards, and it starts a lot of.
Right. And this was in.
They're very. There's a bit of sitara,
Okay.
Indian.
The sitar. Right.
It was one of the last
recordings that they made as
recordings of them. Yeah, they were all within reference of India and so
That's
on.
right. That's right.
So the book kind of it sinks a bit. I had this strange idea that having this big and long poem at the start in the book that is like a ideal place to live, something heaven-like sensations, and everything smooth and very pleasurable for the senses and so on. And there's a break with poems from other Latin America poets, and start some like 10 or a dozen poems about domestic affairs, I would say, and relationships or misunderstandings. Or
but let me just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm concerned about, I would like to hear some of the poems from Desmatéria and the origin.
Yeah, but let me finish to explain the book.
Sorry?
Let me finish explaining the book.
Explaining the book, okay.
And at the end, there's this poem that is kind of losing their senses and almost cathartic state, and altered mind, state of consciousness, and kaleidoscopic kind of psychedelic sensation, and finished. So there's these 3 moments, and I got it straight from this particular song. I don't know why, because as I said, I'm not a Beatles maniac, but
but at the same time, you've given a great eulogy to the powerful influence of music and of a particular song by the Beatles. So
yeah, I think music is the nearest kind of artistic language to poetry. I think the song or the poem, cadencia, I don't know how to say that in English.
You can say cadence, yeah.
Cadence. For me, is the closest friend of way of doing art.
Ezra Pound used to say, wrote about the relationship between music and the word, and dance, music, and the word, that relationship. So the closer you are to music, and the closer the music is to the dance, that's the poem is the result of that, those 3 arts: dance, music, and the lyrics. Yeah. Anyway, so you are.
Yeah, I don't know about dance, but I'm sure the music can be a starting point to a poem or a whole book, right? Which is the case.
Right.
And yeah, I took this photo to the cover front is a photo a cousin of mine in Uruguay.
Here's the book, Desmatéria, the cover. I'm just showing it here. Yeah.
It's a little girl in a pool in the ocean. So it's black and white right here, but the original one, it's on colors, and it's very, it's kind of, she's losing the matter. So it was a fun book to write, and I was awarded best poetry book in Portuguese 2020 in Portugal with it, and I was thrilled. So yeah, we can read the first one, the long first one, opening the book, and then you can right away. You have it translated already, so
that's right. I could read the English version that I made with your help of the original. Okay.
Yeah, we translated on forehand.
Four-handed translation. That's right. Yeah. Like four-handed piano. Yeah. So whenever you're ready.
Vejo meu corpo sentado e sento-me nele. Ah, I'm sorry. This is the last one, not the opening
Not
one,
the opening one, right, right.
the closed one. Vejo meu corpo sentado e sento-me nele, no trono anca sacra. Com minha pele aderida à pele e observo a passagem de uma sombra, asa transpassada pairando no ar da luz. Sou habitante habitada, intrínseca ao presente. Tomo tudo um sonho acordado, na cidade em silêncio da mente quieta. Descubro uma outra cor no meio da folha, asas numa maçã que não cai e o que voa é a seiva do mapa. As vias interditadas, como letras em folhas de outra cor. Descubro a cidade batendo asas. É a primavera exaltada. O mundo está tão alegre, com palavras penduradas com o céu a esmo à toa. Sem o olhar pervertido da memória, vejo tudo como realmente é. Estou perdida. Mentira. Estou na metade do caminho entre sentidos e pensar. Deitada no sofá, assisto a um ponto focal de onde brota um velho entediado sem dentes, flutuando com um mormaço quente atado pelos pés. Os móveis, quadros, a franja do tapete curvam-se inclinados ao centro da linha do tempo presente e diluem a sua contraluz. A sala agora é uma mandala borrada sendo sugada em ritmo de cores neon. Vejo flores na sacada, embebidas num forte lilás. Vejo sonhos debruçados à porta aberta da sala. Desloco o ar, sustenho-me como posso, em cada passo sonâmbulo, e habito-me por completo. Já não há nada entre mim e eu, entre eu e os sábios. Sou de mim mesma para fora, o que não teve destino e o que não coube em versos. Neste transe, quero escrever o mais original dos poemas, o mais alto. Ele pode ser dito de várias maneiras. Aqui ninguém sobra neste absurdo mundo vasto. Mas já estou cega. Todas as palavras estão embaçadas, insolúveis no horizonte já lido. Chove sobre mim a minha vida inteira. Tateio inexprimível. As leis exilam-se. O delicado coração muda de forma e se refina. Submerge nas tripas do tempo onde crescem os deuses, onde espreitam os videntes. Todas as combinações de vidas abrem-se em mim como luas. Eu já não tenho corpo. Agora sou milhares de partículas, estou de novo no centro de tudo até que um poema me conclua.
Excellent. Obrigado. Muito obrigado. And now I will read the translation into English. I see my body sitting, and I sit on it on the sacral throne, with my skin attached to its skin, and I note the passing of a shadow, a see-through wing hovering in the air of light. I am an occupant, occupied, inherent to the present. All around is a waking dream, the noiseless city of the quiet mind. I find another color amidst the leaf, wings on an apple that doesn't fall, and what flies is the sap of the map, the interdited veins like letters on leaves of another color. I can see the city flapping its wings. Oh, the exalted spring, the world is so happy, with words hanging from the sky aimlessly. Without the twisted memories, I can see everything as it really is. I'm halfway between thinking and sensing. Lying on the couch, I gaze, a focal point from where blooms a bored old man with no teeth, floating like hot haze tied by his feet. Furnishings, paintings, the rug's fringe, they all bend over the center of the moment's timeline and dilute me in their backlight. The room is now a blurry mandate. The room is now a blurry mandala, being sucked in a neon colors right. I see flowers at the balcony soaked in a strong lilac. I see dreams bent over to the open door of the room, displacing the air, bracing as I can in each stumble, step. I plainly reside myself. There is nothing between me and me, between me and sages. I own me from the inside out, what had no destination, what didn't fit in verses. In this trance, I want to write the most original of poems, the highest it can go this way. No one remains in this vast, absurd world, but by now I'm blind. All the words blurry, insoluble on the horizon once read. My whole life rains on me. I touch the inexpressible, the laws are exiled. The delicate heart changes its shape and refines itself. I immerse in the guts of time, where the gods grow, where the seers lurk. All blends of lives open inside me like moons. I have no body no more now. I'm thousands of particles. I'm again at the center of everything until a poem holds me back. Magnificent. I can see the unraveling and the raveling as the poem goes on. Really, it merits a longer conversation about line after line because each line has so. I mean, for example, uh, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. When I say at the end, until a poem holds me back, I meant WHOLES, makes me whole and brings me back.
You mean like whole, made me entire
Right.
back, or like a whole, like buraco?
No, not a hole as in a true, as in a falling into a hole. But I mean, in the Portuguese, you said até que poema me conclua. No centro,
Okay.
to the noble, I mean, the center of everything until a poem.
Concludes me.
But you could say until a poem concludes me, but for some reason I put until a poem holds me back. It's a play, you know. A translation is also a transcreation, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a reinvention. And in this case, to use whole as a verb is a neologism. I mean, it's not correct
Yeah.
technically.
But in the United States, I keep hearing people doing that a lot, right? Converting
Nouns into verbs and so on.
yeah, words in verbs
That's right.
all the time, right?
And it can happen. And of course, you have the infamous poetic license and the license to do that, you know, when you're writing or rewriting. But
Not having, sorry, there's a motorcycle.
that's okay. The
Yeah, the freedom of not having a title to each poem and translating as a new version of it.
making a noun into a verb. Actually, I would go back. I think I will go back to this translation and see if I still believe in every aspect of it. I think I do. And we published it in Beltway Poetry Quarterly. But that once published does not mean that you don't then sometimes want to tinker with it. You know, there's a kind of endless revision of poems sometimes.
Yeah.
Until you can revise no more because you've gone over to Hades or wherever you go afterwards.
To the underworld. And do you want to read another one, the brown one, or do you think it's good for now?
No, let's finish with that. We'll read one more, and then we'll have to see if we can edit this tape or not, or we'll run it as it is. But I'd like to also invite you to record again with me, but where you'll just read a set of your poems, you know, and I'll just record you. And I think it would be lovely to have that as well. Let's hear Castagno. Tell us the origin of this poem.
There's a lot of pre-annunciation of collapse of the planet in a sense with this materia, and it's going on for the next book. So this next poem, it's about some glimpse or small signs that the planet is already giving us that I'm getting very angry at you, humanity.
Right. I understand.
So yeah, when I call Desmatéria is this desertification of matter, but at the same time it's collapsing matter, you know,
right.
like the landslide that happened in Brazil like 5 years ago, and something that always catches my attention.
Yeah, but the landslides happen every season, right?
Yeah.
Just now in Sao Paulo, on the littoral of Sao Paulo, there were landslides again, and people.
Oh, yeah, but yeah, landslides are very common, but in that case was about the mining activity.
Mining activities,
surrounding, right? Yeah, surrounding mining.
That's right. So go ahead, Castanho.
Castanho. Enquanto esta casa ainda não nos conhece, nos espalhamos em espelhos e retratos pelas paredes e na memória acumulada nos objetos que trouxemos. As mãos ainda não sabem onde encontrar cada coisa e em quais centímetros da mesa a madeira é crua e espeta a pele. A casa que desconhecemos também não se lembra dela. A mesa não se recorda da floresta, até o dia em que recaia sobre nós a sua verdade. Essas vidas hão de reclamar sua história e farão por justiça o inominável. Enquanto tateamos o mundo, esse perdura por ter se esquecido. Mas a cada noite ensaia o cair final das luzes. E quando acordamos, fica aberta essa possibilidade, como uma ferida.
Brown. While our new house doesn't know us well yet, we multiply ourselves in mirrors and portraits, and in the remembrance all furnishings hold. My hands don't know where to find each thing, yet in which inch the wooden table is raw and an edge opens the flesh. The house we don't know neither remembers itself. The table doesn't recall being a forest until the day its truth must fall upon us. These strong piles will claim their history, and an unmentionable justice will take place as we explore the world it lasts, for it has forgotten. But each night the final fall rehearsal occurs, and when we wake up, this open possibility awaits us like a wound.
Like a wound.
Like a wound. Well, the world may be falling apart, but the poet of that falling apart is with us in this conversation. But let's hope that the poet can also restore, recreate. This is the great challenge, right, between pessimism and optimism, no? Between the falling apart and the rebuilding. And that's a human dilemma that we're facing all over the planet.
And there's this idea of karma happening, right? Because you're supposed to have been taken care of it, and we didn't. So there will be some kind of revenge, or at least it's lash paying debt. And yeah, it's all about catching the signs, you know.
Catching the sign. But as you know, I tend to still, despite it all, wake up with the sun and a smile. You know, despite the challenges, find the light, the optimism. So I don't know whether that's a kind of innocence or a kind of foolishness, but it is. What can one do? I mean, you step forward. Look what's happening now, where the last members of a tribe are disappearing because of in the Amazon, because of the mining and all of the damage being done to the water and the soil, and people are losing their lives because of the contamination, and yet there is a political will to get rid of that particular kind of mining and to restore the people who live and depend on that forest to their health. I'm talking about the Yanomami people and so on. I mean, it's one example of this challenge, right? And Sofia,
yeah, nature keeps giving us so much. And, yeah, as you you were mentioned on waking up every day with a smile and so on, and you're mimicking nature itself, right? It starts over every day.
Starts off every day. Very good. Thank you so much, Sophia, for this time
Thank
with your
you,
poems
Indran.
and this conversation, which has opened up doors and taken away titles from my life. And let's talk again, and let's record more of your poems. And
Okay.
and thank you for taking the time this
No,
evening.
thank you for inviting me,
Okay.
and yeah, it was a pleasure making part of your channel and group of interviewers.
Yes, no, it's I'm really,
And
really, I'll just say to whoever watches this program, I met Sophia at a Ferres at a poetry festival in Buenos Aires in September 2022, and
before that, we met
we
in an online reading of
online readings. Yes, right, right. But
Colombia.
that's right, of course, yeah. Nowadays we can meet virtually, and then we meet in real life. It's all part of a constant meeting and re-meeting. And
And
anyway,
Indran had become a great dear friend of mine. Very important.
likewise to you. Same for you, to me. Thank you so much. All the
Thank
best.
you, Indran.
Okay,
Hello.
I will stop the tape now, and then 1 second. Now, now all of this is being recorded because I don't know where. Stop recording. Okay.